Get into position here. The poop to the poop. Edmund is a massive twat resting on the poop rails. All of our friends are dead, staring up at the poop. Welcome to Le Closet de la Joe. Now I know what you're wondering. Joe, is this your grand coming out ceremony? No. This is just the closest thing that I could find to a wardrobe on short notice, but unfortunately, she's solid as a rock back here, folks. There's no Narnia. No Narnia in sight. But I like where your head's at, okay? We're gonna read C.S. Lewis's masterpiece, The Chronicles of Narnia. I have a box set. I never read these when I was a kid, okay? I watched the movies religiously and I loved them so much. I was in love with the oldest brother, Peter, when I was a child. I don't know what it is with the last 2 months. I've just been in such a nostalgic mood. And I'm like, I want to read all of my childhood favorites. We're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it. I am gonna be honest with you though. It feels like everything in the universe has been against me to make this video. Either that or the Lord Almighty knows that I'm not really that religious and he doesn't want me to read his favorite fantasy story, okay? But the fact that I have this in my hand just goes to prove that even though the Lord works hard, the Amazon man always works harder. One thing that I didn't know about this series is that there's a real massive debate on what order you're supposed to read these books in. So this box set has book 1 being The Magician's Nephew, which apparently is a prequel to the series. I didn't know that existed. So there's a big debate online about whether or not you should read these chronologically, beginning with The Magician's Nephew, or if you should read them in publication order, starting with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So because Mr. C.S. Lewis is not here to weigh in his opinion, I decided to get the next best thing and take the word of a random user on Reddit. So I am going to start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because this random dude on Reddit said that if you read The Magician's Nephew first, you'll lose some of the magic, some of the sparkle that you would have gotten with The Magician's Nephew if you would have read it 6th. I think I'm supposed to read it. I don't know. So we're going to start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The dude on Reddit said this is a better introduction to the series. So that's what we're going to do. So without further ado, I'm going to go back in my hovel here and get started. Welcome everyone. Hope you're having a good day. Ignore the general visage. Me and Mr. Bernard just had a massive brushing party. I finished The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe this afternoon at work, and I have some thoughts. I've only ever read one other C.S. Lewis book before, and it didn't really have this kind of storybook fairy tale quality to the writing style, so I don't know if he just wrote this in a specific way because it's targeted towards children, and it might be because it's targeted towards children. I'm not sure, but it definitely has a storybook fairy tale quality to it, and it focuses a lot on what's happening and what is being said rather than all of the background stuff like what people are thinking and what people are feeling. Mr. Bernard, leave your paw alone. Mr. Bernard is having some issues with obsessive licking. Aren't you, Mr. B? I assume that he focuses on what's happening and what's being said because it is a children's book, but I just don't generally like that sort of writing style. But I think that for the next books in the series, I might try to do an immersion read for them because I feel like this sort of writing style, she went here, they said this really fast-paced story would go really well with an audiobook. If somebody was reading it to you, I can just imagine that it would be a better experience. So I'm going to try that with the next book. As for the content of the story, the movie is surprisingly true to the books. I mean, almost to a T, the movie is exactly like the books. And unfortunately, I have seen the movie way too many times. I still watch it. It's one of my comfort movies, and I really enjoy the story of it. But like I said, I have experienced the story so many times that I'm excited to get into the next books of the series to kind of get a little bit of new content from Narnia. As for the characters, I mean, like I said, you don't really get a lot of their thoughts or their feelings, so I feel like there is a distance between the reader and the characters themselves, but because I have such a nostalgic draw to the story. I felt a little bit more connected to the characters. That being said, Edmund is a massive twat, and I have no arguments for Edmund, except for the fact that when he meets the White Witch for the first time and he's eating the Turkish delights that she gives him, apparently, which this was not said in the movies, but apparently these Turkish delights are magical Turkish delights, and once you start eating them, all you want to do is continue to eat them. It's like it makes you immediately addicted to these fucking Turkish delights, that anyone who had once tasted it would want more and more of it, and would even, if they were allowed, go on eating it till they killed themselves. So, sorry, like, these magical Turkish delights are insane. So it kind of gives him a little bit of leeway, in my opinion, but Edmund is still a twat. She's just such a little monster. As for the White Witch, something that's not included in the movies, but is included in this, and I think it's really, really cool, is that the White Witch is supposed to be, like, a daughter of Lilith, who, if you don't know, was, like, Adam's first wife, you know, because this is really biblical series. So the bad guy, the bad lady, the bad witch woman being the daughter of Lilith is so freaking cool to me. Aslan is supposed to be like this, he's supposed to be the hero character, right? He's like the son of like a sea emperor or something like that. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me, but he's supposed to be like the Jesus character, right? I don't understand where Aslan has been. If he's supposed to be like the king of Narnia, why would he let this White Witch come in and screw everything up and keep everybody in winter and kill a bunch of people, turn a bunch of people to stone? Why would he allow all this to happen? Like, where was Aslan during the entire time that the witch was coming in and taking over everything? Why wasn't she, like, nipped in the bud right when she started to do her dastardly witchy deeds? And then at the end, when he's leaving again, the beaver says, like, oh, you know, he's got other countries to look in on. I'm like, are the other countries left to their own devices like this? Are they in this bad of shape? Like, did the other countries have, like, a bad bitch of summer, like burning shit up all the time? I don't know. But Aslan seems like a little bit of a negligent ruler. What the fuck is this next one? The Horse and His Boy? I don't know what that's about. Is it still following Peter Piper and the gang? Like, or are we picking up with different people? Like, what is the horse and his fella? We shall see. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's fantastic. And hopefully the next time I see you, I will not look like I've been through the blender. Well, my friends, I done goofed. You guys remember my confidant, my informant, some random guy on Reddit? Okay, so I just thought that he was talking about reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first, and then you just go on. Sorry, you're a little crooked. You just go on with, like, the numbered version. So I was going with The Horse and His Boy, which is marked number 3. So I was just, you know, gonna go ahead and go. Well, I got halfway through The Horse and His Boy when I realized that maybe random guy on Reddit may have had something else to say about the reading order, and he did. He definitely did. So apparently The Horse and His Boy is supposed to be book number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm halfway through it. Technically supposed to be reading Prince Caspian, which is the next book after The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe came out. So I am going to put this down, and I'm going to pick up Prince Caspian so that I'll be on the right track. The first book that I read was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, then Prince Caspian, then The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, The Horse and His Boy, The Magician's Nephew, and then The Last Battle. So you can see they're all mixed up, but I've put them in the order that I'm apparently supposed to read them in, the order that they came out in. I've put them in that order so that I will no longer get confused. The past 2 weeks have been interesting. We had some tornadoes. I broke my toe. I have now injured myself yet again. So it's been a little bit of a struggle, and I've also been in quite a large reading slump. So I've not been reading that much, but here's hoping that Prince Caspian will get me out of this. Here's hoping the rest of the week is better. That's all I have to say. Now, I know what you're wondering. Joe, what in the hell are you doing? Well, I've got some ironing to do. So I figured 2 birds, 1 stone. Okay. I finished Prince Caspian. And I don't know if it was the fact that I did the audiobook version this time, or if I just enjoyed this story more, or maybe it's because this story wasn't as familiar to me as book one, but I really enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun with it. I love Prince Caspian's character. I love that so much time has passed in the world of Narnia, so we come back and, you know, all of our friends are dead kind of situation, but that's okay because we have new problems, we make new friends, and I really liked the way that the story went. Again, I really like Prince Caspian's character. I love that he is kind of like a new Narnian who is obsessed with the old ways and the old Narnia. The old Narnians are kind of in hiding, you know, because the people who have taken over Narnia are not very nice to them, you know what I'm saying? And I like that he goes out and he finds them and he teams up with them, and you know, it's just very sweet, and it's so cute to see all of the old Narnian creatures banding together to fight back for their home. It's just so sweet. And it's also really sad because a lot of the talking animals who could talk before no longer can, and they're pretty much just like beasts. I don't know, it's just filled with so much hope and happiness, and I thought that the narrator did a fantastic job. One thing that I do have to say is that Aslan, I don't know, I'm conflicted about Aslan, right? Because isn't he supposed to be like the Jesus Christ character, or the God character in this world? So he's supposed to be like this protector, and every time he comes on the page, his enemies pretty much like flounder and they're terrified of him, right? And he walks in, wins every freaking battle, and then, you know, the day is won. And it's just left me wondering why in the hell Aslan, in both of these books, has let Narnia suffer for so long until a group of children come. But if Aslan would have just stepped in, you know, when the White Witch came and initially started messing things up, we wouldn't have ever had any need to save the world. There wouldn't have been any need to, you know, save all the creatures and all the animals and save Narnia, you know? And the same thing happens in Prince Caspian as well, because Narnia has been taken over by the Tilmarins, I can't remember what they're called, but they're these people that found themselves in this world, found their way from our world to that world, and built a country. And when that country had a famine, they invaded Narnia and conquered, and have been ruling Narnia since then. And they've spread this really deep-set fear of the ocean, which is where apparently Aslan is supposed to come forth. He's supposed to come forth from the ocean, right? And also to the animals. There's a huge, massive fear of the talking animals. And so the animals and the creatures have been killed off. You know, the trees aren't awake anymore. They're like in a deep slumber because they were going around chopping down the trees. And then all of a sudden, Caspian comes, and he's got this love and desire to bring back the old Narnian ways because he's just fascinated by it all, right? And so he gets a hold of Susan's horn from book one. When he ends up needing help, he finds a group of old Narnians, and they set off, and they're gonna, you know, overthrow the king. But then, of course, he runs into some sketchy business, ends up blowing the horn, and the blowing of the horn calls Lucy, Edmund, Susan, and Peter back to Narnia. I've got to turn this around. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, Aslan the problematic lion. Okay, if Aslan would have just stepped in when these people came and tried to, you know, take over Narnia, the trees wouldn't be sleeping, the animals wouldn't have become like gone back to their beastly ways, you know, we would still have a happy, healthy Narnia, you know, and nobody would have had to die. There would have been no problems if Aslan just would have taken care of his freaking business as the protector of this world. I just don't understand Aslan. I don't understand why he prances around at the most opportune moment when everybody else has been fighting and trying to survive. He just shows up, and all of a sudden the battle's won and everybody's afraid of him, and you know, it's like, oh my gosh, Aslan's here, you know, now we gotta all fall into line. And I'm wondering if this is going to continue to be the case, because it seems like Aslan really likes his sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, right? And he relies on them to fix everything about Narnia. Anything happening in Narnia? Oh my gosh, well, it's told that the sons and the daughters of Eve are going to solve this problem, even though I could very well solve it myself. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I just think Aslan is a sketchy fucker, and I think everything would be solved a whole lot easier if Aslan just pulled his weight around here. Like, he's kind of like an absent father. Aslan's all powerful, and he's a majestic beast, and he's just, the epitome of good, but he's really not. I mean, he's an absent father. I'm gonna get off of here and finish up this ironing and start on the audiobook for The Dawn Treader. You know what I hate about ring lights? The ring. Hello, my hoochie mommies and hoochie daddies. I have finished The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and I think I've just come to the conclusion that I just don't think this story of let's all get on a ship and go to all these whack-ass islands, I don't think that kind of story is really for me. That's what this is. This is like a Narnia and Gulliver's Travels, kind of similar in vibe to Gulliver's Travels, and maybe that's why One Piece doesn't really work for me as well as I would like it to, or at least the first couple volumes haven't worked for me as much as I would like them to. It's because we're going on a ship and we're going to a bunch of random whack-ass islands, and that's pretty much what this is. I mean, we don't have Peter and Susan in this one. It's just Lucy and Edmund, and also their cousin Eustace, who accidentally tags along. Let me just say that Eustace is probably my favorite character in this whole book. I think he is just so fantastic. He's such a whiny little brat, such a whiny little bitch, and I love him so much. There was a boy called Eustace Clarence Scrubb, and he almost deserved it. That just, paints the whole picture about how much of a absolute toad Eustace is, and I love him. I love him to death. I mean, at some points, he keeps, a diary, and he's just, bad-mouthing and sass-mouthing everybody, and I just love him. I think he's incredible. In this book, I mean, of course, we're on a ship, so C.S. Lewis talks a lot about the poop deck, and I think that poop is one of his favorite words to use in this book. I mean, let me go through on page 119 and read you all of the times that we refer to the poop deck, but he doesn't refer to it as the poop deck, he just calls it the poop. Could they get it over the poop? Or was it already too tight? It was resting on the poop rails. A dozen or more sprang up on the poop. The sea serpent's body was so low now that they could make a line across the poop and push it side by side. Lucy, who knew where everything was, heard him where she was standing on the main deck, staring up at the poop. This is all just on page 119. I've only gone through one paragraph, folks. In a few seconds, she had been below, got the axe, and was rushing up the ladder to the poop. Are we getting the picture? The word poop is used so many times in this book, it's insane. And I know it's supposed to be short for poop deck, but there's just something funny about a British man reading you the word poop over and over and over again. One of the things that I've noticed throughout books 2 and 3 is that Aslan has become a lot more distant with the children, even though he's literally asking them to save the world in every single one of these books. But he becomes more elusive, and he's kind of on the edges of things, and you don't really see him. He doesn't necessarily talk to the children. He's just kind of there sometimes. When he wants them to go in a certain direction, he'll show up and he'll be wagging his super golden lion mane, and he's come in this way, come this direction, this way, you guys. And most of the time they don't listen to him anyway, so I don't know why he bothers. And I don't know why he isn't as close as before, but also at the end of book 2 and also this book, he tells Susan and Peter at the end of Prince Caspian that they're getting too old, they can't come back to Narnia. And then at the end of The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, he tells Edmund and Lucy, hey, you're getting too old, can't come to Narnia anymore. So maybe it's the fact that they're getting older that he's not really communicating with them as much. He's oh guys, you're just getting too old. We can't be friends anymore. We can't rumple around in the grass like we used to when you were children, which is a little bit creepy. But also in this book, since we're on a ship and we're sailing the ocean blue, we get quite a bit of world building outside of Narnia itself. We do go to visit all of these different islands, and I found them to be interesting, but there's just something about the island hopping storyline that just, I don't know, it gets old after a while, and after the second, third, fourth, fifth island that we visit, I'm can we do something else? Can we not go to the next whack-ass island? I don't know. But then the ending of this was really cool because they ended up sailing to the end of the world and meeting a star, which is really cool. Spreading out beyond just Narnia was really cool. Also, the ending was really cool. I just don't know if I like the island hopping stuff. I just don't know if that's my thing. I also started the next book, which is The Silver Chair, and in this one, we don't have any of the Pevensey children. We just have Eustace and a schoolmate of his named Jill. I'm right at the beginning of this one, so I don't really have a lot of thoughts other than the fact that the narrator for this book sounds like Benedict Benedict Cumbersnatch, whatever the fuck his name is. Doctor Strange. It sounds like Doctor Strange. It's not, but it sounds like him, and I'm really enjoying that. Also, there's a reference to, it's the next book that I have to read, which is The Horse and His Boy. There's a reference to that story in here as a like song that this poet or bard or whatever the fuck is like presenting to the court, you know, the story of The Horse and His Boy, which I thought was so cool, such a cool little nod. And C.S. Lewis is like, I'm not gonna say like the whole story here, but it's really cool, you should go check it out. And I'm like, I will, C.S. Lewis. BRB. One of the things that's kind of like a bittersweet thing is how fast time goes by in Narnia. We are introduced to all of our friends and things like that in book 1. By book 2, they're dead, right? We're introduced to Caspian. By book 3, he's like a teenager. It's been 3 years. And then by this book, The Silver Chair, Caspian is an old curmudgeon-y man. He's an old man. You get to see like bits and pieces of these people's lives, so it's really sad when they come back and it's been like 70 years for the people of Narnia, and you know that some of your Boothangs are dead and the other Boothangs that are still left are like old men. It's just kind of sad. And I don't understand why Aslan only allows children to come into his domain. Is it because they're just easily controlled into believing that they can save the world over and over and over again? So he's just like, yeah, come on back. And then when they get too old and they start questioning things, he's like, I think you're getting a little bit too old to be here in Narnia. I don't know what it is. Why are only children allowed in Narnia? So far, this one, like I said, I'm just now into it, but it looks like we're going to be hunting down the Lost Prince, Caspian's son. We'll see what happens, but I'm really interested in these cave dwellers with pitchforks. I'm very interested in what... Hello, my beautiful friends, my beautiful people. When last we spoke, I was getting ready to start The Silver Chair, which I am reading as book 4 in the Chronicles of Narnia series, and I have finished it. I have not just finished The Silver Chair, I have also finished The Horse and His Boy, which, if you have been here since the beginning of the video, you know that I started this one first. Second, accidentally. So I was already about halfway through this one, so I just breezed through the audiobook of this. I think these two are probably two of my favorite of the stories in the series so far. So in The Silver Chair, we bring Eustace back, and I love Eustace. I don't even know, spoiled rich boy, but in like a really charming and lovable way. And also one of his schoolmates, Jill, obviously taken by Aslan out of their normal world and into Narnia to perform some sort of task that Aslan, apparently the all-powerful Aslan, cannot do himself, and this task is to find the lost prince. The prince being actually Prince Caspian's son. So Prince Caspian is now King Caspian. He's like old, like 100 years old or something like that. He's real old. And Jill and Eustace are sent on this quest to find this missing prince before the king dies. King Caspian, which is really sad. So The Silver Chair was fun because we're introduced to a new protagonist in Jill, but also there's this little dude who is a marshwiggle named Puddleglum, and he is the most despondent character that I think is in the entire series, and I love him so much. He's a character who is just overwhelmingly negative, but it's in such a charming way that you just have to love him. Like at one point he injures his foot, and as they're tending to it, he's like, oh man, you're gonna have to cut it off with the knee, I guess. Like, just very overdramatic and very negative. He's charming in his own way, and he was just a great addition to the story, and I really, really loved him. We also get to see some bad giants, as well as these, like, underground mole people, which was very fun. One thing about C.S. Lewis that I have realized is that every adult woman that we have seen so far in Narnia is, like, a bad guy. They're all bad people, and it's like Aslan tells Lucy and Susan, you know, you can't come back because, you know, you're getting too old to come to Narnia, and I have a feeling that he thinks that women are evil, and that's why Lucy and Susan cannot come back to Narnia as adult women, because they'll turn evil, like these witches in here. Jill, as a new character, she was really fun as well. She is kind of like the opposite of Lucy in a way. She's not the sweet, innocent girl that Lucy, you know, seems to be. She's more of like sassy, she's more emotional, she's got a lot more spunk to her, so she was really enjoyable to read about. The Horse and His Boy is, again, it's one of my favorites of the series. I think these two have been my favorite stories of the series. The only thing I want to say about The Horse and His Boy, in addition to that, or kind of like a caveat to that, is that the main antagonist in The Horse and His Boy is this race of people called the Calormen, who are, I think they're south of Narnia. Yeah, they're south of Narnia, and they're brown people. They wear turbans, and they're also like dirty, and they enslave people, and they sell their daughters as wives to these old men. Like, they're just played out to be this like really nasty people. And in contrast, the white northern Narnians are like the saviors, and they're like, you know, great. They're fantastic. So I feel like that's a little bit racist. Ignoring all of the racist tendencies of this book, this is kind of like a Moses story. I mean, there's so many of these stories are just really, really biblical, but C.S. Lewis takes those kind of Bible stories and puts a twist on them a little bit. So we're following this guy named Shasta, I believe his name is. Shasta, who showed up in a boat at some point and was taken in by this Calormen fisherman who kind of, you know, treated him like a slave. Again, you know, what racist tendencies. But then a lord of the Calormen comes with his horse and begs the fisherman for a place to sleep, and Shasta figures out that the horse that he was riding in on is actually a Narnian horse that was taken into slavery and has been enslaved ever since. And so he and the Narnian horse make their way to Narnia. They meet up with a young Calormen girl who is running away from a marriage that she doesn't want, who is also conveniently riding on a Narnian horse, and so they all make their way to Narnia. This is set when the Pevensey children are kings and queens of Narnia in their first time going to Narnia, you know, when they actually get to rule for an extended period of time. So we actually get to see Edmund and Lucy and Susan. We don't get to see Peter, but we do get to see Edmund and Lucy and Susan. Peter is apparently off fighting some giants in the north. I don't know. But it was really nice getting to see them again, and I really liked the journey that we went on with this. I think that I am more interested in the quest and the journey aspect of these books rather than like with the Dawn Treader, where we're just kind of like going to these separate little islands and seeing different things. I really like the we have a purpose, let's get this done type of situation with these books. Those two being finished means that I'm going to be starting The Magician's Nephew. From what I read, from what my friend on Reddit said, this one is full of some Easter eggs and little tidbits and things like that, and it's a little bit magical. Obviously, Magician's Nephew, a little magical. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm still really enjoying the audiobooks. The narrators for each book are different, so that's fun, right? That's fun. We're keeping it spicy, keeping it fresh, and they're all super short, so I'll be starting this one this afternoon. I really do not want to get out the mic situation and the tripod, so we're dealing with this right now. Hi, hello, how are you? We're gonna be at the mercy of the chickens and the wind and the cars going down the road, and that's just gonna have to be fine. And also this weird noise because Mambo's on a leash. I finished The Magician's Nephew today. I didn't think that I needed a Narnian creation story, but I really, really ended up liking it. It's not even I think, it is the best enjoyment level wise, the best of the series. So we're following this little boy named Diggory, and it's like way, I don't know, like the 1800s or something like that. But we're following this little boy named Diggory and his friend Poppy. I think her name's Poppy, or is it Polly? I can't remember. Mambo, don't go hunting the lizards. Leave the lizards alone. Diggory's uncle fancies himself a magician, and he creates these rings. He creates ones that are yellow to go to different worlds, and then ones that are green, supposedly to get you back to your home world, right? Diggory's uncle is a weasel. He is a little nasty man. He has been experimenting on animals like guinea pigs and things like that, and so he pretty much entices Poppy, whatever the fuck her name is, into being like his first human experiment pretty much, and she has no idea, you know, what's gonna happen. So after Poppy, whatever, I think her name's Poppy. I'm gonna go with Poppy. After Poppy goes into the magical next world, Diggory gets pissed off and he ends up going as well. And they end up in this kind of like in-between world, and it's a wood, like a forest with some like pools in it. They end up visiting multiple different worlds. In one of these worlds, we meet somebody very familiar from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and we find out how that specific person makes their way to Narnia, which was really interesting, really cool to see. Also, of course, they make their way to Narnia through some shenanigans, through some shits and shenanigans, you know what I mean? And when they get to Narnia, it's like a black world. Like, there's nothing there until someone starts singing, and that someone is Aslan. You get to see Aslan create the stars and the sun and the tree and the trees and all of the animals, and also you get to see the crowning of the first king and queen of Narnia. You also get, of course, C.S. Lewis's example of original sin, because everything has to be biblical in this series. But I didn't mind it so much. I found it more interesting to see the parallels between the biblical stories and C.S. Lewis, you know. It was just really cool seeing all of the connections, especially with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And by the ending, I was literally like, oh my gosh, are you freaking kidding me? I ended up really, really liking that one. That one is my favorite of the series. And now we get to the absolute turd that is the last battle, the final battle, something like that, the last book in the Chronicles of Narnia. I'm like 20% of the way into it right now, and I had to put it down because I'm so irritated. I mean, after the high that was The Magician's Nephew, I really think that this is just a huge letdown, and it's so different from every other book in the series. So at the beginning of this book, we are following an ape and his friend, who's really kind of like his servant, but he's like a donkey, and they come across a lion's skin that's washed down the river, and the ape has the grand idea that the donkey should dress up like Aslan, and they can pretty much make the world do whatever they want. Because of the way that time goes by in these Narnia books, you know, it's been like 1,000 years since anybody's seen Aslan, and so this ape is just taking over everything. Pretty much teamed up with the Calormans, who are like, you know, the big enemy in the series. And of course, you know, we'll get to the representation of the Calormans in a second, but he teams up with the Calormans and they start chopping down the living trees, like the dryads. He says that Aslan wants to set up trade with Calorman, and he starts selling all of these like living trees, you know, the living trees, because you have the living trees and the living trees, you know, these trees can actually talk, the talking trees, if you will. He starts selling their pieces, their bits and pieces to the Calormans, and he pretty much enslaves all of the talking animals and says that it's all Aslan's will. And the Aslan that he's referring to is literally his servant slash slave, who is a donkey dressed up in the skin of a lion. It's just all really messed up and really dark. It's just a very different tone from the rest of the series. Also, with the Calormen themselves, I mean, I talked about this a little bit when I was talking about The Horse and His Boy. The way that they're described is extremely racist. The neighboring kingdom, and they live in the south, and they're brown, and they wear turbans, and they smell like onions and garlic, so they're, you know, like super stinky and super bad, and they enslave people, and this, that, and the other thing, and they believe in a different god, and I just think that it's a really offensive way to represent a group of people, especially when the Narnians are free and they are white, and they live in the north, and they're free and they're white and they're perfect and they're holy, and they worship Aslan, the true god. You know what I mean? I don't know, it kind of makes me uncomfortable. Jill and Eustace, who I love Jill and Eustace, I really like them, but when they come, they have to like infiltrate the Calormans, and so the king, who is the current king of Narnia, he's like, oh well, I have this special powder that we can put all over ourselves and make us brown, and we can wear turbans. So it's like, it's a little sketchy. It's a little sketchy. It's just a little sketchy. The whole thing is sketchy. But that's where I'm at right now. I am gonna finish it, but it rubs me the wrong way. And with the leader of the Calormans being an ape. Alright, bitches, I have been working on this vlog for a month. A hot month. Like, I had plans, grand plans, like after I posted my Twilight vlog, I was gonna do this one. Reading 7 children's books when I had the audiobook would only take like a week or two, right? Well, it's been over a month. If I'm honest with you, I just did not want to talk about this last book. I'm so upset about it, okay? So I am gonna talk spoilers because I want to talk about the ending, the grand ending of C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia. We already talked about the fact that the antagonists of this last book made me a little bit uncomfy, because we have a monkey who has this kind of like army of garlic and onion smelling brown people who are manipulating and enslaving and murdering the Narnians, right? And the monkey also has a donkey donkey who is dressing up like Aslan, pretty much against his will. The poor donkey, his name's Puzzle. We love him. Okay, he was one of the redeeming qualities about this book. But Puzzle, he thinks he's stupid, and so he kind of goes along with everything that the monkey says because he thinks that the monkey's smarter than him, and so he just dresses up like Aslan because he doesn't really know what else to do. He doesn't know how to get out of the situation, so we feel really bad for Puzzle. Puzzle has my forgiveness, all right? But it is kind of funny that Aslan is supposed to be like the god character, and so we have a literal ass dressing up as Aslan. I don't know, just the tone of this last book was a lot darker because of said enslavement and manipulation and murder. Literal murder, but of course Aslan is not going to come and intervene. He's going to call more children, the same children, from our world to come and save the day once again. And I feel like the whole first half of this book was really lackluster in the sense that it's dark, but it's also just ridiculous, if that makes sense. It's dark, but it's also just ridiculous because nobody's listening to anybody, and Aslan's been gone for so long that the people, the Narnians, have no idea who he is or what he stands for. So the ape, I can't remember his name, Shift. His name is Shift because obviously he's a shifty character. So Shift is able to really easily manipulate the Narnians into believing that Aslan wants them to be enslaved by the Calormans, but it was one of those situations where I felt really irritated and uncomfortable because nobody was listening to anything that anybody else was saying, and the guy who's supposedly the king of Narnia at this point in time, he is such a bumbling fucking idiot. Like, he is just such a ding-dong. And then the ending of this book is like the worst ending of any series I think that I've ever read in my entire life. It's like C.S. Lewis could not imagine a happily ever after for these children and the Narnians other than for them to be within Narnia forever. But of course everything is biblical, so Narnia is supposed to be heaven, and so therefore all of the children have to die in some freak railway accident and are now just in Narnia forever. Hallelujah, amen. That's the lamest ending of any ending that I've ever read in my entire life. They all die in the end? Like, what is that, okay? The thing that makes it even worse is that The Magician's Nephew, which I read right before this, was incredible, okay? It was incredible. The Narnian origin story, how the White Witch got into Narnia in the first place, it was genius. It was incredible. It was biblical, but it was just fresh enough for me to be like, wow, okay, I see the connections that we're making here. There were a lot of Easter eggs in here, pointing towards things that happened in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and it was just fantastic. So coming off of the high of Magician's Nephew and into this Horton Hears a Who bullshit, I was so irritated. It took me like a week to listen to this book on audio because every time I started it, anytime Shift or one of the Calormans would speak, I would just be so irritated because nobody was making any right decisions, and I was just so angry throughout the entirety of this book. It's to the point where I am in a reading slump because this book just made me so angry, and I gave it 1 star. So the series as a whole, I would say that the ones that are worth your time are definitely, The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and The Silver Chair. The Horse and His Boy is kind of like a side story, side quest, and the only time you really know anything about The Horse and His Boy is like a mention of their journey in the Silver Chair, and also at the end of the last battle, when of course we all die and we all go to heaven, which is Narnia, and we meet, some old friends, which that part of the book was really cool because we got to see Mr. Tumnus again. But I think that as an adult, if you don't have any sort of nostalgic ties to this series, I wouldn't recommend that you would pick it up unless you're doing it for like, I don't know, a religious book club or something. I think that might be interesting. So you could discuss the biblical ties and the different references to, Bible stories and things like that. I think that would be an interesting thing. I'm happy that I read these because I wanted the experience. I wanted to kind of go back on the nostalgia train and read a story from my childhood that I had experienced, with watching the movie a shit ton of times, but in a different format, and I'm glad that I did that. I don't regret reading them. I didn't read these when I was a kid, so they're not technically written for me, but I can judge them as an adult, and as an adult, I would say that C.S. Lewis has a very dry writing style, and if you're wanting to get into the series, definitely go the audiobook route, because the audiobooks were really well done. Going in publication order is probably the best way to go, although The Last Battle definitely left a kind of bitter taste in my mouth for the ending of the series, but that's okay. Yeah, I read Narnia. Now I'm gonna try to go get out of this reading slump. So that's what I'm gonna go do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to join the Not So Average Joe Army. We would love to have you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you next time.